Hey guys, it's Chonk. I just wanted to take today to go over a few things I think could help when you've got a brand new 70, whether it be an alt or your main character, you're just now getting there for the first time, and you want to get ready for Mythic Plus or rating, and you're kind of lost because there's a lot going on. I've leveled up 5 or 6 characters to 70 now, so I've got a few, and this is the way I do it. Everybody's going to have a slightly different way, but overall, I think this is a way to get there relatively quickly. Within a day, you could probably be ready to step into low-level mythics or step into a normal raid. So all that being said, the very first thing to do is head over to your local auction house as soon as you hit 70 and just kind of check out all the blues. So like I'm on my shaman right now, who is relatively low level, only at around 370. But if I was a brand new 70, I would come in here and I would go slot by slot and I would buy the 343 gear. You can see it's really cheap. It's a random stat. So just try to buy something that's like your best stats. As an elemental shaman, for instance, haste mastery would be the stats that I'm interested in. And then I just go slot by slot by slot looking for the 343 blues. Some are going to be a little bit pricey than the others. But otherwise, like see here, there's not a 343. That's because the crafted piece is only 316. So you'd have to go to like the greens. But that being said, we'll get back to this because with crafting, you can do a Titan matrix as well. So again, slot by slot looking for 343s, whether it be greens or blues. And just that'll get you up there just to start with relatively quickly and just cost you a little bit of gold. Now, that being said, once you're at level 70, the thing you want to look for also is for world quests. And specifically, you want to look for these Titan training matrix, because with this, you can get 372 to 382 crafted gear really easy. It doesn't require any sparks, no primal chaos. You can see it's 372. So if I were to go and, like, I'm a leather worker on this character. So if I wanted to make something that would normally be 316, but if I slotted in a Titan training matrix, that would come out to 372 to 382. And you could very easily just throw that on the public work order system, and I guarantee you'd probably get high 370s without much issue. Or if you wanted to, you could probably just advertise for a crafter and get it to 382 pretty easy, because this is a low skill item. It's not going to be too much trouble to find someone to get that up to Q5. So again, buy the 343. And then look around your world map for world quests where you can pick up these Titan training matrices. And between those two things, you could probably get mid to high 340s just right when you hit 70 with very little effort. Now, the other thing I would recommend as well is if you've been leveling to 70, probably you've been hopefully doing things like doing the Cobalt Assembly quests, things like that, but just saving up a lot of your blue quests, especially dungeon-oriented quests, and not turning them in, so that when you hit 70, you can turn all those in, and they're all 346, so slightly higher than crafted, but a lot of them will have trinkets, which will help you cover some of those slots that you can't just necessarily buy crafted items for, or at least not for very cheap. So you can get things like your trinkets, because almost every dungeon, like Halls of Infusion and Ruby Life Pools, they have trinket rewards. So if you don't turn in those quests, you can get 2 trinkets right off the bat that are going to be 346, and again, helping you plug those early holes and get your eye level up there as quick as possible. And again, if you've done that and you do some crafted gear, you get mid to high 340s right off the bat. A common strategy, as I mentioned before, is to level in the Cobalt Assembly from like 66 or 67 all the way to 70. That way you end up at high reputation when you hit 70. And if you do that, you can have a 389 ring right off the bat. So having a 389 ring is obviously going to help boost your eye level even more. And the rings are pretty nice, especially if you're a tank or a damage dealer. The tanking ring is actually very, very good. The damage ring is okay for single target. It falls off greatly in multi-target. But for a pure eye level upgrade, being at 389, going to be a huge boost to you as well. So again, another thing that can get you up there really, really quickly. So those are the things that you can do. Hopefully you've done some Cobalt grinding on your way up. And if you haven't, that's fine. But again, mid to high 340s, you're in just right off the bat. It's like 5 minutes after you hit 70 for the most part, you can be there. The next thing to do is to look on your map for but the primal elemental storm invasions. So this is currently in season 1, and in season 1 with the elemental storms, you can get 359 gear by collecting elemental overflow. And with the elemental overflow, it's anywhere from 200 to 500 elemental overflow per item, and those items are 359. So if you spend a few hours just going to each one of those, there's 2 types of currencies that you can get there. The elemental overflow, which allows you to buy the base item, and that's 359, and that covers almost every slot, your main armor slots and a weapon. And so if you go in here, you can get cloaks for 200, bracers, things like that, and the chest pieces are 500, and the weapons I think are 500 or 400 or 500, depending on if it's one-handed or two-handed. So again, 359 gear, and the 2 set bonus is actually really nice as well. But again, 359 gear, and while you're doing that, you can collect up to 9 sigil of storms per week, or storm sigils per week. And with that, you can also get 385 gear. So right off the bat, again, right after you hit 70, if you go around and farm your elemental gear, you can get at least 9 tokens, which is going to allow you to get 1 385 piece in your first week, because it's 5 or 7. So you can, I usually do things like bracer and belt for my 385 for my newer characters, because they're not tier related, and you get the 2 set, and they're really cheap. So by week 1, you can get the belt. It's 5 storm sigils, and right after the reset, you can get another one, and then you get the 2 set bonus, and then you start just kind of filling in over time where you need it. So that's a really quick way to again get some 359 and 385 gear. So by doing all of that, hopefully you're in your mid to high 350s. This is maybe an afternoon's worth of work to get the rest of those slots filled out there, and you're going to be in a good spot. So at that point, you've done kind of the really, really easy low-hanging fruit, and you've also probably done hopefully a few world quests as your eye level goes up for things that are just going to boost you up even more. So if I look around the map, like here's a 369 trinket. That trinket is obviously going to be a slight upgrade for one of my slots already, but you'll probably get at least a couple of those. So again, capitalize on that and push your eye level up even more. The other thing that you want to do, and at this point, there's 4 of the Sparks of Infusions that are available to get, is to come over to the Maiden of Inspiration, which is right here at the corner of Valdragon, and pick these up. And you can do these all the way up to the current number of sparks that are available, which is about to unlock here in a couple weeks to unlimited. And after that, you can start crafting very high in gear. That's going to be at least 382 and up to 392 before you have to worry about Sparks of Infusions and other things. And there's a couple of different ways to look at that. Most people at most specs are probably going to get the Elemental Lariat just right off the bat, because it's a necklace that's got a very unique proc, and is pretty much best in slot for almost, not quite every, but almost every spec. So if we look at the Elemental Lariat, you can see that it's an epic necklace with a prismatic socket, and it basically boosts one of the gems in any one of your slots already. And if you use a tiered medallion setting, you can actually add 2 more sockets, and then it becomes a 3-socket necklace right off the bat. So again, a great necklace to pick up. Almost every class is going to use that. So the other thing you can do is go to, and I'll link this below, is go to the Droptimizer, and I'll go into a little bit of detail at the end of this video about how to utilize the Droptimizer, and it'll show you the other crafted slots that you can use to boost you up. And typically that's going to be usually a ring and then maybe a weapon, depending on which way you want to go. That's the way I usually go, is to get these, is to get the ring, because it's and then I throw an alchemical flavor pocket on top of it. So if you look at the ring, I like the Titanic Insight, because I don't care about doing the place you visit long before just a random hearthing location. It's flavor. But if you use the Titanic Insight, you can then add the alchemical flavor pocket, which makes your food last twice as long. And this actually doesn't count against your embellishment limit, so it's free. I mean, the flavor pocket actually costs money, and it can be expensive depending on your server, but it doesn't count against your embellishment limit, which you can only have 2 embellished items. So there's that. So that's usually what I make second. And then after that, I almost always make a weapon, but again, that varies per character. So like if I wanted to make a staff, you can see it's going to take the spark, a whole bunch of primal chaos, and just the rest of this stuff here. So I usually go for the weapon, although some people, again, might go for something different. Like say you're a plate class, it's very common to want to make the unstable frostfire belt because it helps you use the fire rings from the raid. So that's pretty common. If you're a leather class, it's not uncommon, again, in order to activate the fire rings from the raid, to do a flaring cowl. So there's that. Otherwise, again, most people are going to make the lariat first, and then it's going to be a random item after that, depending on your class, your spec, your armor type, and your particular needs. And I'll go into the Droptimizer a little bit later in the video. So we've covered a few things now. The other things to worry about or look at are the soup feast and the Ixcar community area. And that community feast will allow you to get usually an epic grade item out of the soup once a week. And so it's worth doing. There's also the Siege of Dragonbane Keep. Doing that, which is active in this area, is very important as well, because not only will you get a epic item possibly out of that every week, but right after the Dragonbane Keep, someone called Captain Lancer spawns just southeast of the keep. And he almost always drops a two-handed weapon or a plate helm, but the two-handed weapon is what he drops very often. So if you're playing like a Death Knight or a Fury or Ars Warrior, that's going to be very, very top of mind to go hit that as soon as you hit 70 as well. So that's a good one. And then there's the elemental chests, which take place in the Oharan Plains, right over here by the springs. And then again, in the Primalist Future, there's also an elemental chest that spawns as well. The other big thing are also going to be the World Dragons that are out now. They have a chance to top 395 gear. And last but not least, I think, again, going back, if you haven't done it, doing the Cobalt gear. If you do all of those things, it's very easy to get around 360 or so item level within probably, not too long. I would say a day or two of hitting 70 at most. It doesn't take that long to do. And then you could really start hitting your mythics and your LFRs and pushing your item level even higher. So that's how I gear my characters for 70 when I hit 70 and get them up there and to get them raid ready or mythic ready. So without further ado, let me go into how to use the Droptimizer. Now, first of all, you want to install, and I'll link this below, a add-on called Simulation Craft, and this allows you to just type /simc, and here you can copy and then paste this into the simulation site. Let me bring that up now. All right, so this is Raidbots. Raidbots is a very common site used to simulate things. It's extremely popular, and what we're going to worry about here is the Droptimizer. So we've copied our simulation script or key values from the game, and we're just going to paste them in here. You can see it just loads up all my character information, spec, all my items, etc., etc., etc. And look, it says I've got a wrong type of items loaded in one of my slots, so I probably need to go look at that and see why that is. But what we're looking at here is professions, epic, and we want to toggle, let's say 392, because we're not going to have a whole bunch of primal infusions and things like that, because our characters are relatively new, and it's going to be a struggle for us to even get primal chaos anyway, because we're not going to be running a whole lot of high level mythics. So we're going to do that. We're going to say haste mastery is like the big spec for my elemental shaman. My preferred gem, let's just say it's 88 haste, but yeah, I don't know. And then we're thinking about like all these things that we want to sim. So we run the Droptimizer, and this is going to take a little while. I could say take 5 or 10 minutes to run this. So the first two is just going to run really quick, and then it's kind of going to go simulate every single slot with every single different weapon and item type, and it could take a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause this now, and I'll come back when it's ready. All right, as we can see, the simulation has finished. I actually did went and check, and I'm wearing leather pants for some reason, so there's that. So this takes into account all the different things I can make, and it's going to show like the individual best pieces I could craft for the DPS. Now some of this is a little, there's things here that require embellishment, so I can't make all of this. But what it can tell me is like, what are the pieces that are going to give me the best bang for the buck? So if I look at this one, this is a 6.3 DPS increase, and I can go down here and look, like these are huge increases in DPS. So these are items that I might want to make ahead of other items. So it'll give me a good idea of the things I should be making with my sparks, maybe ahead of other things. You could ignore this priority system that has more to do with like if you're running a dungeon. Like I should focus on leatherworking because there's so many upgrades there. Alright, so now that we've looked at the things that we can craft, we can also do another Droptimizer simulation on Mythic or Heroic or Vault of the Incarnates, and it's going to tell us very much the same thing. So we can go by the Primal Storms, the Vault, but the key thing is that this is a tool that'll help you focus on things that you should be upgrading quickly and give you like a good idea of what you can do. So if we run it from Mythic dungeons, all the ones, and we say we're probably going to run like M4s because we're still really new, and getting in the 2 to 4 level is relatively easy. And run this Droptimizer again, it'll show us all the things that we should be prioritizing and give us a good idea of like what dungeons that we might want to go for over others. The other thing we can look at is going to something like Wowhead. So here on Wowhead's site, we can do like look for the best in slot items, and we can come down to like the Mythic gear. And this will tell us like what particular dungeon that we should run and an idea of like the items that we should be going for. Now it's really hard to farm individual items. Like I've done a Halls of Valor for my Warlock trying to get a Horn of Valor many times. So it's not really maybe the best idea to go try to farm a specific item, although eventually, yes, you probably will get it. But it gives you an idea of like what dungeons you should target. So we can see that we get multiple upgrades out of halls, out of Quarter Stars, and even Azure Vault. So those are the dungeons that we should probably target more than others. Like if I look here, Ruby Life Pools is not even in this list for Elemental Shaman. So I probably want, unless I'm just trying to get my IO up, I probably will avoid Ruby Life Pools. Again, looking at the same thing, like there's 1 or 2 temples here. So even though Temple of the Jade Serpent is worth running because I can get a couple upgrades, I would get more value running Quarter Stars and Halls of Valor because there's a chance that I'm going to get, there's a higher chance that something's going to drop that's going to be an upgrade for me overall, or be a best in slot item overall. So that's where I should probably concentrate my dungeon runs. And the same thing here, this is really nice for ranking trinkets. I don't know if this is the end-all be-all, and some of it depends on your particular spec and playstyle. And again, even within a spec, like Elemental Shaman has like a lightning spec and a fire-based spec, depending on if you're doing AoE or single target, and other specs are going to be different. And I'm not well versed in Elemental Shaman, but regardless, the types of trinkets you use is going to play into your playstyle and the type of content that you want to go for. So take this with a grain of salt, but it's a good jumping off point as well. All that being said, I think that's a good overview on where I would start when you're a brand new 70. And within a day or two, you should be able to very quickly ramp up to your 360, 370 item level. And then from there, be able to probably get into normal raid and low-level mythic keys and just kind of start steamrolling after that. I hope you guys find this useful, and it's going to be something that you can work with. So anyway, take care. Have fun out there. Talk to you guys later.